Magazines and journals in British literature. This is the video of the day. Hello, how are you? This is Heena from Team Vallath. And today's topic has so much to it that I haven't got everything in the slides. I will read major things from the slides and I'm going to read more from our book, Literary Master Reference Book. This is the book I'm following to cover all the topics that I'm doing recently on our YouTube Vallath channel. Now, first of all, you need to tell me why were journals started at the first place? Why magazines started running at the first place? Tell me. Actually, they acted as cultural institutions. They were mediators between writers, readers, and society, right? So these British literary journals, they were not merely magazines, rather, they shaped English literature. How? They educated the growing middle class at the start. They reformed society through literature, right? They created public opinion. Then they became an area of criticism. Yes, they started criticizing and evaluating literature, these journals and magazines. Further, they promoted new writers. Serially, many writers started writing before writing the full novel in a book form. So many of these periodicals, like Charles Dickens, he would write serially, right, in journals and magazines. So to experiment with new forms also, essays and everything, they got place in journals first. So this is, in short, as I told you, the aim or the purpose of these British literary journals. Every movement had so many of these journals, okay? First, we're going to start with the earliest journals of British literature. You can say 18th century periodicals, okay? Are you ready? Which one can be called as the first one? Actually the starting of the journals in British literature, the most famous one. That's the Tatler of 1709. Okay. Of course, before that, there was something called as a weekly review, but then the Tatler takes the place. The Tatler was edited by Richard Steele. It got its publication thrice weekly, which was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. People would wait for these 3 days to read the Tatler. It began in the year 1709, continued till 1711. And also, it was written under the pseudonym of Isaac Bickerstaff. So please connect Isaac Bickerstaff with the Tatler. Purpose should be social reform, moral essays, and started by Steele. Later contributions in the Tatler were given by Joseph Addison and Jonathan Swift. So note, Tatler came before Spectator. These are very famous periodicals, right? Remember this. Tatler came before Spectator. Now come to learn about the Spectator. This was started by Joseph Addison. Editors together became Addison and Steele. It was published daily. It started in 1711, continued till 1714. And a very famous character that the Spectator gave to the English audience was, or to the English readers was, Sir Roger de Coverley. He was an old-fashioned, a very good-hearted, but an old-fashioned Tory country gentleman. So please connect Sir Roger de Coverley with the Spectator. And the aim of Spectator was to enliven morality with wit and to temper wit with morality. Many a times this question comes, the aim of which periodical was to enliven morality with wit and to temper wit with morality? The answer has to be the Spectator. Okay? Let's move on now to The Guardian. The Guardian of 1713 was founded by Richard Steele, although it was very short-lived. Started in 1713, ended in 1713, but it replaced The Spectator on London breakfast tables. In fact, it gave way to The Englishman, which Steele pitched as a sequel. Okay, so what came after The Guardian? The Englishman. And a very important thing connected with the Guardian was this photo that I have inserted. It is called as a lion's head letterbox. This lion's head letterbox was actually installed at Button's Coffee House in Covent Garden. And people would come and they would submit their material inside this letterbox. And whatever got selected got printed in the Guardian. Will you remember this? Yes, you will. Now, before I start with the Romantics and the 19th century periodicals, I'm going to read very important periodicals from the book itself. Okay, it's page number 70 of our Literary Master Reference book. We've spoken of the weekly review, the Tatler, the Spectator. Now, Gentleman's Magazine. Gentleman's Magazine, founded by Edward Cave, started in 1731. Then London's Magazine, edited by Isaac Kimber, started in 1732. Monthly Review, started by Ralph Griffiths in 1749. Rambler, we haven't spoken. I'm going to tell you about the Rambler. The Rambler, of course, by Samuel Johnson, started from 1750 to 1752. The Idler, again by Samuel Johnson, from 1758 to 1760. Will you remember? You will. Critical Review, founder Tobias Smollett, from 1756 to 1817. Then came the Bee of 1759. Tell me, who edited the Bee? Oliver Goldsmith. Then the Watchman of 1796 was edited by S.T. Coleridge. The Watchman. Okay? Come now. We should start with romantic here. So I'm going to talk more about Coleridge after my slides. Look at the slides now, please. 19th century, especially the romantic periodicals. These are important ones. The Edinburgh Review of 1802, which was founded by Francis Jeffrey. Its leaning was towards the Whig. Okay, the Whig. It was a quarterly magazine, the Edinburgh Review. It supported romantic writers initially, but later the Edinburgh Review did criticize Wordsworth. Okay. And this title, the Edinburgh Review, refers not to one, but to 5 different cultural magazines. 1802, you can say, is the most influential of the Edinburgh Review. Will you remember? The Edinburgh Review. Now let's come to the Quarterly Review of 1809, which was founded by John Murray. John Murray, Quarterly Review of 1809. Political leaning was Tory, unlike the Edinburgh Review. Edinburgh Review was Whig. Quarterly Review is Tory. So it opposed the romantic poets. Okay. Then came Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine of 1817. The nickname of Blackwood's magazine was Maga. Please remember, nickname of Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine was Maga. Just like Quarterly Review, even this had Tory standing to it, and it was very famous for violent criticism. It included the scandalous Chaldee MS, which was a translation, and Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine also attacked the Cockney school of poets like Hunt, Keats, and Hazlitt. Will you remember Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine? Lovely. Now I'm going to read from the book, page number 72 of our Literary Master Reference book. Tell me the Friend, the periodical called as the Friend of 1809. It was edited by Coleridge again. So the Watchman and the Friend both were by Coleridge. Remember, please. Edinburgh Review, I told you. In my slides, the Edinburgh Review of 1802 was founded by Francis Jeffrey. In our book, we have written the editor is Archibald Constable. Both are right because, as I told you, the Edinburgh Review is not one, but 5 different cultural magazines. So in our book, it's Archibald Constable of 1802 to 1929. Such a long period for Edinburgh Review. Now, the Examiner's editors were Leigh Hunt and John Hunt. It started in 1808. Quarterly Review, I told you, John Murray of 1809. Fraser's Magazine. Tell me, Fraser's Magazine of 1830. Who edited it? Hugh Fraser and William Megin. Fraser and Megin, connect them with Fraser's Magazine of 1830. Easy? Now, Punch and all, I'll start with later. This page we'll do later. I will start with our Victorian periodicals now. Come on, Victorian periodical, very important household words. Editor Charles Dickens, started in 1850, ended in 1859. Household words, spoke of social issues, and it was published weekly. It got its name from Henry V of Shakespeare, where the line was, familiar in his mouth as household words. So Charles Dickens took the title of his household words of his weekly journal from Shakespeare's Henry V. And along with Dickens' household words, featured works by Elizabeth Gaskell, Wilkie Collins, and Harriet Martineau. Okay? And the famous serialized versions of which of Dickens' novels was there in household words? Tell me. Hard Times. Hard Times. And which journal came after household words? All the Year Round. Yes, that is the right answer. All the Year Round of 1859. Also edited by Dickens, and it published 2 of his very famous novels in serial form. Which are these 2 of Dickens' novels that were published in All the Year Round in serial form? A Tale of Two Cities and Great Expectations. Now talk about the Cornhill magazine. Published started its journey from 1860 to 1975. Editor was W.M. Thackeray, William Makepeace Thackeray. It included a lot of middle class readership to it. Which journal am I talking about here? The Cornhill magazine. Now, questions again for you from our book. Punch. Punch magazine was started by Henry Mayhew and Ebenezer Lendls. So Punch is by Mayhew and Lendls, started in 1841. Germ, which was later renamed as Art and Poetry, is the magazine of Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, started in 1850. 1850, Germ, Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Now talk about the Atlantic Monthly, started in 1857. Atlantic Monthly of 1857. Editors were R.W. Emerson, H.W. Longfellow, Francis H. Underwood. Emerson, Longfellow, Underwood. Connect them with the Atlantic Monthly of 1857. Okay? Now let me turn the page. The Athenaeum. Please tell me about the Athenaeum. The Athenaeum of 1828, edited by Buckingham. The Athenaeum of 1828, edited by James Silk Buckingham. Nice. Now let's move on to the modernist journals, please. Look on the screen again. The Egoist. The Egoist, subtitled as Individualist Review, started in 1914. Aim of the Egoist was to recognize no taboos, and therefore it published so many controversial works like parts of Ulysses. Okay? And the Egoist till date is called as England's most important modernist periodical. Answer to this, England's most important modernist periodical is the Egoist by Dora Marsden and Harriet Shaw Weaver. It's written in our book. Dora Marsden and Harriet Shaw Weaver. Let's move on. After Egoist comes the Little Review. The Little Review of 1914 was founded by Margaret Anderson. Even this published Ulysses in parts, and the quote connected with the Little Review is making no compromise with the public taste, and that is why it faced obscenity trial. Liked by the public too much, faced obscenity trial. Here is the Little Review. Look, it's written, The Little Review, Literature, Drama, Music, Art by Margaret Anderson, editor. Look at the issue of April 1914. Wow, what all does it include? The Germ, Rebellion, Man and Superman, Lines for Two, Futurists, A New Winged Victory, Rupert Brooke and Whitman, Sonnet Change. Wow, look, these are all the journals and the magazines. Lovely. Look at the cost, $2.50 a year. The Little Review. What comes after the Little Review? Blast. Before Blast, let me read from the book. My questions again start. Tell me the editors of the Yellow Book of 1894. The Yellow Book of 1894 is by Aubrey Beardsley and Henry Harland. Now, the English Review is by Ford Madox Ford. The English Review of 1908 was edited by Ford Madox Ford. Then came Poetry, a Magazine of Verse, year 1912, edited by Harriet Munro. Please connect Harriet Munro with Poetry, a Magazine of Verse of 1912. Okay? Then tell me the New Free Woman. The New Free Woman, which started its publication in 1913, it was a feminist journal. Who edited the New Free Woman? Dora Marsden and Harriet Shaw Weaver. Basically, Weaver was the owner and Marsden was the editor of the New Free Woman, a feminist journal of 1913. Now talk about Blast here. Blast, only two editions were published. Please remember, only two editions were published. They were edited by Ezra Pound and Wyndham Lewis. It is considered as a modern art movement in England. It's recognized as a seminal text of pre-war 20th century modernism. I'll make it easy for you. Please connect Blast with Vorticism, edited by Lewis, connected to Ezra Pound also. This bright pink cover, Ezra Pound referred it to as the Great Magenta Covered Opusculus. And this Blast became a text of the pre-war 20th century modernism. Will you remember? You will. Now talk about 20th century journals, the Criterion by T.S. Eliot. This is one of those quarterly reviews or one of those journals which was started by T.S. Eliot and always edited by it throughout its run. So from 1922 to 1939, which was the tenure of the Criterion, T.S. Eliot was its editor. Okay. It came out quarterly. Look, the Criterion Quarterly Review. It became an international modernist journal. Why? Because the Criterion promoted European modernism. Will you remember? Yes, you will. Now tell me about the Adelphi. This is from our book. Who edited Adelphi of 1923? This literary journal called Adelphi was edited by John Middleton Murray. John Middleton Murray. Now come to Scrutiny of 1932 to 1953, a literary critical journal which was edited by L.C. Knight and F.R. Lewis. Please remember, Scrutiny, edited by Lewis and Knight, started in 1932. It influenced, Scrutiny influenced, remember, Cambridge criticism, practical criticism, Lewisite criticism, connect all of them with Scrutiny. Will you? Yes, you will. Then critical review, critical quarterly. Question from the book again. Tell me, who edited critical quarterly of 1958? It is Brian Cox and A.E. Dyson. Please connect Cox and Dyson with critical quarterly. Now talk about miscellany of 1960s. Miscellany journal of 1960s. It was actually headed by Writers Workshop, headed by Lal. Headed by Lal. This is Indian Journal. Miscellany is an Indian journal of the 1916, edited by the Writers Workshop, which was headed by Lal. Miscellany acted as a forum for young writers to express theory and practice. Editors connected with Miscellany are Nizam Ezekiel, Kamla Das, Ruskin Bond, A.K. Ramanujan, Srinivas Iyengar, Jayant Mahapatra, and K.K. Daruwala. Oh God, this is from Indian literature, but then yes. And the last work journal that we have inserted in our book is TESOL Quarterly, 1967 to present. It's called TESOL Quarterly, 1967 to present. Wow. Loved it. Loved it. Done with so much from our book today. Okay, you can read it by yourself. The first point is the magazine. So Tatler's editor is Steele, actually kind of the first one in English literature. Spectator's editor is Addison and Steele, which focused on moral essays. Read it yourself. It's very easy. I just did it in all my slides before. And as I told you, almost every movement in British literature had a journal connected to it. Spectators connected with Enlightenment. Edinburgh Reviews connected with Romanticism. Household Words is connected with Victorian realism. Criterion and Little Review is connected with modernism. Blast is connected with vorticism. Wow, we're done. Loved it. This was actually a jam-packed session. I think we did a lot and I made it easy for you. I was not rushing through. If you still want to revise it better, kindly scroll back and listen to the video again. This is Heena from Team Vallath. Take very good care of yourself. It was lovely being with you. Bye.